just give kind of a basic overview for people like me about what just kind of the
Well,
layman's.
what do you know? Sure. What do you know about cryptocurrency, Paul?
I know that it's a digital form of currency. I know that there are that computers. I don't know. I just know that they use a lot of computer processing. You use a lot of computer processing power to
Yep.
actually create these Bitcoin and to kind of keep them not organized is the right word, but track them. Authenticate. But I'm not sure how, because what I don't understand is where value comes into something. I know that
Mm-hmm.
like the U.S. dollar, the government. I mean, a certain value is ascribed to it, but the values ascribed to a dollar bill is a dollar, but a dollar is worth a lot less today because of inflation. But
Mm-hmm.
it still is a dollar. So I understand. Okay, here's a dollar, and it's
Mm-hmm.
worth less, but I get that its value. Bitcoin, I don't know how it derives its value because it's not like there's a $10 bill that's worth $10 and you base,
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand how value is derived or not, its value is assigned.
Sure. I'm not a Well, first, what got me really interested in cryptocurrency years ago was that um, I understood that if you somehow,
You go for it. Yeah.
sure, that if you somehow took money away from the current financial system,
Hmm.
because right now it's all very controlled, right? I mean, I
Yep.
can give you money, I can go buy whatever I want. It's not controlled like how you spend it necessarily, although there's a few restrictions on how you spend it. But mostly what I mean by controlled is it's it's all well organized, like with the banks and the way money is transferred and the way it's printed
Hmm.
and the 9 Federal Reserve banks around the country, one right here in Minneapolis. Um, how the money is sent from the printers to the banks,
Hmm.
how banks lend out money, uh, how it's all reported. Like it's a huge institutional framework. It's
Yep.
whatever. It's enormous and well worn. Like it's been this way for a long time now. It's been over 100 years of the Federal Reserve system of money in the U.S. So, for something to come along that's outside of that,
Hmm.
like that's pretty big because right now when they say things like we're going to restrict how money is used, like Google or shoot, mom and pop shops aren't allowed to work in Cuba
Hmm.
because of an embargo. Same with Iran, same with North Korea, same with probably a few other places. What if what if there was a money that was outside the U.S. government and they wouldn't know if you did?
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
so if you take things outside, another one is taxation. Like, how will they know? How are they going to collect taxes
Hmm.
if everyone's on this cryptocurrency? This one I always use. I don't know why, but it came to me, and I like to use this example. Like campaign finance laws, right?
Mm.
Because everyone's on the dollar, we can say you're only allowed to donate this much to a political campaign. That these groups are not allowed to give to, like nonprofits are not allowed, 501c3 nonprofits are not allowed to give to a political campaign. Like it's all monitored because it's all on the dollar.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
what if you're on another? It's a whole other system besides the dollar system.
Yeah.
And so when they say things like you're not allowed to buy this or buy that online, um, what if you use cryptocurrency?
Hmm.
So to develop something outside the system is revolutionary.
Yeah.
And there's even more to it than that. But that to me is what really attracted me. So
Well, I guess
uh,
the thing is, it's not that it's just outside the system; it's outside every system. It's not as though because you have euro, you've got other currency from different companies
true.
or different countries,
Yep.
but they all integrate in some way. Like you
Hmm.
can
Hmm.
convert this, convert that, and it all kind
Yep.
of
They all
fits.
talk.
But this is, yeah.
This is yeah. It's outside of all that, and it's also direct. Like there's no there's no quote unquote middleman, right? I if you have your own Bitcoin, you don't have someone at the bank telling you, how and when you can access your own money. It's all
Yeah.
right there.
Oh, wow.
So it's and this is actually really important for people who don't have a bank,
Hmm.
um, because they don't have access to, mm, well, electronic forms of. If you don't have a bank or a bank card, how are you going to send money to places, right?
Hmm.
So, how are you going to transact business if you're,
Yeah.
say, in a developing nation, you don't have a bank account? So, the ability to do it on cryptocurrency is a huge step for developing nations, and for developed ones, it's just, again, it's that same social societal implication of being outside the system.
Yeah.
The technical parts of it, actually, I'm
Let me
not.
let me ask you before we move
Go
on,
ahead.
because I have a similar question for what we've been talking about. So I kind of okay. When I lived in San Diego, and this you don't have to live there to get this, but and I would work in the restaurant industry, and there's a lot of Mexican workers there who would take the money and send it to like they make money, send it to
Hmm.
Mexico. It's almost
Hmm.
like I mean, and the way I saw that is that it's basically taking our like he's our money and it's exporting our money, like it's getting out of circulation in the United States, it's going out of the country. And I think of Bitcoin, is it the similar thing where you're basically taking money out of the US system and putting it into another system? Like you're almost draining money from.
No,
No.
because there is no home of Bitcoin.
Well, but it's not. It's outside of the circulation of normal the U.S. dollar. I mean, it can be reintroduced. Well, I guess yeah. Go. Let's say somebody takes $1 billion, and puts it into Bitcoin, buys $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. Does that? I mean, I guess it's so small on the whole scheme of things. It doesn't really
Yeah,
matter.
the reason why
Yeah. Never
Bitcoin's
mind.
price rises is simply because, well, that's an interesting question that you pose, but the best answer I have for it is, US dollars is an American thing, Mexican pesos is a Mexican thing, but Bitcoin is a global thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it would take Bitcoin from entity. So let's say they were paid in Bitcoin and then
Mm-hmm.
they sent that Bitcoin to Mexico. It would go from American hands to Mexican hands,
Mm-hmm.
I guess. But, that's the same case too if I buy anything or
Mm-hmm.
a company works with Mexican
Yeah.
business. Like, let's say I have a factory in Mexico and I'm paying those workers. So, yeah, I mean, welcome to the global,
Yeah, and I just know
global
I know so
economy.
little about global economies and just currency and money. So I don't even know the questions to ask. But you're about to go into or about to say something about the technical aspects of it. Is that what it was?
Yeah, well, the founder of Bitcoin did something very genius. He or she or they, because it's anonymous, figured out how to have a system of value that can't be um, it can't be edited. It can't be manipulated,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's practically unmanipulatable, if that's a word,
Mm-hmm. It is.
because it has achieved a status where there are so many people watching the network that you can't just go in and fudge the numbers. The
Yeah.
others would recognize it as being messed with and they wouldn't agree with it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for smaller cryptocurrencies, there are things called 51% attacks,
Yeah.
which if you have a small network and it's not very decentralized
Mm-hmm.
and you own or control most of um, uh, the people that create consensus on the network. Like let's say it's like a board, and you control three of the five board members.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then you can control the fate of the company,
Yeah.
and it's the same way here. If they're not board members, they're called nodes, NODE. And if you have a small cryptocurrency that you can control over half the nodes, well, suddenly you can tell them just to put all the money in your wallet.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay.
Bitcoin has got 10,000 nodes, and it's practically impossible
Yeah.
to manipulate it. So you can't manipulate it And so all the transactions are verifiable. They're all public.
Mm-hmm.
You might not know who has which address, but you can see which address sends to which Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
So when there's a huge movement of money, people like, oh wow, someone just moved like 100 Bitcoin. Holy cow, who's got all that? Like it's all you can look at it. So because it's public and decentralized, it's secure. And yeah, just that conceptualization of that original thought of I can conceive of a system that's like this allows it to be free of any single entity controlling it, unlike, say, the US dollar and the Federal Reserve that determines what they're going to do with money policy, whether it's interest rates, whether it's how much they're going to print.
Where does it value from, though? The value.
Well, the value then is how many people are going to buy into the system. Mm-hmm. Because you or I can create our own cryptocurrency tomorrow. Bitcoin is open source. Mm-hmm. And many others have done this, trust me. Many have said, well, let's just take the open source code of Bitcoin and create Paul Brandon coin. And if we get enough people to hop aboard, then there's going to create a market. And once you have a market of buyers and sellers, it's like a stock. Okay, and that determines the price.
Scarcity seems to be the thing that that is a scarcity can create value from anything just based on there being not that many of it, right?
As long as there's demand that outpaces it. Yep.
Yeah. So
supply.
Demand.
That's what inflates the price of Bitcoin, is that there continues to be people who pay for it at that value. Mm-hmm. And it tends to work out. So let's say there's something called market capitalization, mm-hmm. where if you look at, like, take a company like Tesla and you say, okay, they have 100,000 or 3 million or however many stocks that are out there in the world. How many shares of Tesla are out there? Mm-hmm. Let's say there's 3 million. Okay, and they each sell for $100. Okay. So they have 300 million. The company's worth $300 million because they have 3 million selling for 100 each. $300 million. Bitcoin is worth about 54,000, and there's about 15 million of them out there, I think. So you do the math and you realize, oh wow, this is $1 trillion asset.
Yeah.
It tends to work out so that the supply and demand puts the price level at a point to where the market capitalization will be appropriate for its significance. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but people just know that, look, you start to use Bitcoin on a global scale and you get all these buyers, it's going to increase the price. Mm-hmm. And so right now, Bitcoin is worth more than Facebook.
Really?
If you take Facebook stock and multiply it out by however many there are times the value of each share, and Facebook's a $900 billion company or whatever. It's something like that. Mm-hmm. Well, Bitcoin is worth about $1 trillion. So it's like, okay, we can start to then see what we're talking about here. We're talking about a major asset. It's still not that close to gold or other things, but it's big.
Yeah.
And it's big because a lot of people have it and hold it, mm-hmm. and they don't sell because they know that it's probably going to keep going up. It's a good way to keep the value of your dollar. Some people invest in gold just so that they know they're not going to lose money. Just a safe harbor. And people are really going to look at Bitcoin that way.
Okay, well, because gold is it's a tangible bar of gold. Here's gold.
Yep.
Like, it's here. What happens if the power goes out? The Bitcoin is there is there a way that Bitcoin could just kind of be like somebody hacks in? I know it's
if all the power in the world went out, Bitcoin would be done.
And let's say all the power went out in the world for 5 minutes and then it kicked back on. Where would Bitcoin be? Just back where it was? Is it kind of like there's it almost like consciousness? Does it need to continue on uninterrupted? If it breaks, does it just
these are great questions to Google. My thought on that is, because it's all been discussed, but my thought on that is if all the exchanges went offline because electricity died, people would still have their Bitcoin, right? As soon as electricity came back on, you'd be able to plug in and say, okay, yep, there's my wallet, and there's how many Bitcoin I have. The same way you can go into your online bank account and see how much money you have.
Yeah.
It's just it's a ledger, right? Bitcoin is a distributed ledger that says this address has this many Bitcoin. Okay, great. It's just data. Okay. So that data wouldn't change. Now the value of those Bitcoin might, but that would then be determined when exchanges open back up, turn back on,
Yeah.
where people traded. And I'm guessing if the power went out for 5 minutes and it really took everything offline, that a lot of people would sell because they'd freak out. They'd say, "Holy cow! If this happens now, it's probably it could likely happen again. And if it happens for a long period of time, Bitcoin isn't going to be useful. So I'm going to get rid of my Bitcoin and buy something that I know I can have. Maybe it's gold. Maybe I'm just going to buy a house and buy some land or buy a gun and bullets."
All of these, the computers that do what data mining, is that what it's called? They're all over the world, right?
The crypto mining, data mining is when you look through a bunch of data looking for something.
Yes, crypto.
The mining is those are set up all over. China just got rid of all their miners. They don't want them in their country. So that was a big hit to the network insofar as it there were just fewer miners out there working to keep the network rocking and rolling. Mm-hmm. But it was fine. There was a drop in price, but it came back and now it's back to where it was not too long ago.
Okay.
But yeah, these miners are all over the world, yeah. And that's how you want it. You wouldn't want them all in one country.
Yeah, that because the power really could go out and it's if you're in Texas in the winter like last year, the grid collapses. And what are you doing? So so what did you tell us more about your the conference that you're a part of last week?
Yeah, well, crypto is one application of the technology known as blockchain.
Yes. Okay.
And blockchain is what I described to you. It's that way of conceptualizing a data set where we can keep track of who has what in a way where someone can't cook the books and say, oh, no, actually, because if you think of an old ledger and pencil and paper, you could like erase one or you could leave the one and put 2 zeros behind it and say, I guess Mr. McGillicuddy's general store gets 100 kilos of flour. I thought I only got one. Right? You can mess with inventory, whatever if it's centralized. But a blockchain is a decentralized ledger.
Okay.
So it's anyone who has a node can look at the ledger at any time. So it's public. You can't just mess with it because everyone would see it.
Yeah.
And no one would. And then there are those who validate it, right? And those are the ones that end up getting Bitcoin. And they're not going to validate something that's
Bitcoin. That's how new Bitcoin's generated, right? By the people who. Okay.
The program spits out new Bitcoin to those who devote their computing power to mining it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, this is getting into the weeds a little bit, because I honestly don't know I don't know how the program, because I'm not a programmer, so I don't know how it works where it suddenly adds it adds a new Bitcoin to somebody's wallet. I don't know how that original process works, but after that, the miners will eventually sell their Bitcoin to the market, and then people like you and me and whoever else can get them, or a tiny piece of one.
How much computing would you need to get up to a Bitcoin?
Well, now a lot, because it's become a big industry. Yeah. And the way the Bitcoin algorithm, the mining algorithm works, is it's every 4 years or so it's increased. The difficulty is increased. So when Bitcoin first came out, you could mine on your laptop.
Yeah.
And now you need a room of servers because the difficulty is really extraordinary.
Yeah.
and so it's LLCs. They're established companies that mine Bitcoin,
Hmm.
and then they end up getting tokens, and each token is worth over $50,000. So you get rewarded handsomely, but you need to have a lot of investment to get this thing
Yeah.
going anymore. Um, it does seem unbelievable, and I suppose a lot of people would just wish they could pretend it's not doesn't exist because we don't want to believe in something that's so unbelievable, right? We don't want to believe in something that's not.
Yeah.
It's kind of unsettling that. Wait a minute, you mean some people just mined Bitcoin with their laptop and got 300 of these things, and now
Yeah.
each of them are worth $50,000?
It's
It
kind
doesn't. It
of
doesn't seem right,
no. I'm
but
sure it's
it's
kind
the
of
way it
like
is.
with every new technology. It takes a while. I'm sure when the telephone was first invented or whatever, or telegraph, it all felt like, wait, what? I don't have to go across the street and talk
Yeah.
to so and so. I can actually just dial
This
it
is
up.
harder though. It has to do with money. We're usually happy about new technology. Like I remember when wireless modems were a thing.
Hmm.
I thought that was amazing. Like,
No, but
whoa,
you know
no
what?
way! I don't
Okay,
have to plug in my computer.
but here's the thing about new things is that they're more easily digested when they fit into the current infrastructure. So I'm sure like cars being when a car was invented, it did not fit into the I mean, you had
Yeah,
paths for
true,
horses and stuff, and yeah, a car could maybe go on dirt roads and stuff, but it just didn't. But once the
yep,
infrastructure it was built, now any car that's made kind of isn't going to blow your mind too much because it fits within the infrastructure.
true.
Same thing with so the internet kind of was groundbreaking. But
Mm-hmm.
Wi-Fi wasn't great. It was just a better
Yeah,
version of something that existed. Whereas Bitcoin, yes, it's
true.
currency, but it's unlike
Yeah,
there's no infrastructure for it to fit into. It's kind of existing outside of everything. So people, I think the problem is people just don't know where to put it. Like if you invented, like if they made
mm,
a, a a $75 bill, it probably wouldn't be that practical. But we know where it fits in the scheme of things.
true,
you know. But
true.
Bitcoin, I don't know where it fits. But anyway, so I think that's part of why.
It is. It is a sea change. It is a paradigm shift. And so back to the event. So blockchain is that distributed ledger where it's not just someone writing in a book. It's
Yeah.
digital. It's across the world, and one can't mess with it. Okay, that's a really powerful thing to have. It's a good way of keeping track of things, is what it is.
Yeah.
And yes, money is one application, but you might also want to keep track of inventory,
Hmm.
or you might want to keep track of where things are when you ship things, or you might want to keep track of data like medical records.
Hmm.
So blockchain itself can be useful for a lot of industries. And so years ago, some guys started the Minnesota Blockchain Initiative,
Hmm.
for which crypto is the main um, interest.
Hmm.
But like I said, there's other companies like 3M will use blockchain for
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe, who knows, supply chain, keeping track of things. Walmart uses blockchain for supply chain. And traditional finance will look into blockchain for their finance, or probably for the crypto itself. And politics is huge in this world because of laws that have to be rewritten to accommodate this new field. So we thought it'd be a good idea to finally have an event and bring everyone together in Minnesota.
Hmm.
Minnesota's not known for being a tech powerhouse. We've got all these like uh, traditional, safe. It's very Minnesotan. We've
Hmm.
got Target, Best Buy. I mean, it's an impressive list of companies we have.
3M. You got a bunch of
3M,
cereal places
Medtronic,
like General
Cargill, but they're. I'm sorry. What was that?
with cereal. What's down there in
Oh, General Mills.
Northfield? General
General
Mills.
Mills.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. They own Pillsbury. So we've got these good old American companies, but uh, not a lot of like tech startups. But there are some.
Yeah.
So we thought, let's bring them together. Maybe there's some crypto mining, which there is. Maybe the nonprofit world here, which is strong, wants to get into cryptocurrency philanthropy.
Hmm.
And then, of course, there's always the legal aspect about is our state going to change laws to accommodate crypto? So we wanted to bring in all these players. And we reached out and we got, a candidate for governor next year. We got Representative Tom Emmer, a congressman from the Twin Cities, who's become a national figure for really fighting for the rights of crypto holders. He's been a real champion of that. So we're happy to have him in our state, and he came into town to speak. We've had people from philanthropy. Did you know that it's fun to dig? Like the journalist in me enjoyed this part. When you just look up like blockchain or crypto on LinkedIn, like blockchain Minnesota, and suddenly I find this one guy. He's the president of the African Digital Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
And he lives in the Twin Cities.
African? Like, that's a big,
He's from Nigeria, and he's part of this organization. Now, maybe there are others like their organization. I don't know. But he is that figure of that organization. So please come. His name's Eric, and he showed up and got to know him a little bit. And there's a surprising number, or maybe not, these days with everyone on Zoom, of freelance workers that work for pretty well-known crypto companies that just live here.
Okay.
Right? They just work remotely. So a few of them showed up. We had about 150 people.
That's a good amount.
And we want to make it known that, we're here. It's a controversial field because people don't like crypto. It's got a scary name, crypto, right?
Well, that's
not the best marketing.
I've been wanting to ask you, do you know where the name blockchain came from?
They call it that because it's a chain of blocks. So they call a block, so chain just because it's all connected.
Yeah, okay.
But it isn't like links of a chain. It's blocks that are chained together, and each block is what will be outputted by the miners. So I'm sorry, I don't think I have that right. A block is outputted by the ledger, by the software. It isn't one-by-one transaction. They put transactions in one group, and it's called a block.
Okay.
So every so often, a new block is generated that has all these transactions.
Okay, so that it's about as literal as you can get, from a okay.
Yes, that's where blockchain comes from.
But I get a block of group. Yeah, no, that makes okay. I don't really know what it is, but I understand the explanation of.
That's all we got to go by. If you can understand that there's digital money and that it's sound, and that this helps solve a lot of financial problems that people in developing nations face without being banked with their money. See, we in America are pretty lucky. Like, we have inflation, but we don't have it like some other countries do. Argentina right now has 20% inflation or something like that. Like, imagine that. Imagine making 50 grand a year, which sounds great. Sounds enough. But by the time next year rolls around, it's worth only 40 grand. That's what 20% of inflation will do, because you'll have 50 grand, but suddenly a candy bar is $3, and a gallon of gas is $9 or whatever. So it doesn't matter. And these are inflationary systems. Like, they're designed to inflate.
But they need to inflate at a certain rate for it to work.
It's pretty slow, so you don't really notice it. But even in America last year, it was 5%, and that's high for the U.S.
Normal?
Like 2.
Okay, but last year was kind of an odd year, and they put so much money in. But it was just
correct. They printed a ton of money. So
poor
anyway, I this is an exciting new field that I'm interested. The philanthropic part of me is interested, not just because crypto can be useful for more efficiently sending money. That's a thing too. People at that restaurant in San Diego might send their money back home via Bitcoin, and they do. People do this, especially to Nigeria, and now especially to El Salvador, a tiny country, but they just legalized Bitcoin. So they're building the infrastructure, and everyone will have it on their phone, so they can just receive it. It's quicker. It can be. Ideally, it's quicker. It's cheaper, and if for no other reason, that's because they don't have to worry about Western Union and MoneyGram for wiring the money
fees
anymore.
And this and that. It's just Okay, let me ask you this, and because we've kind of got in this, and I think you've given us a lot of information, but it's at the point where I'm kind of, at least me, and probably the listeners who are kind of like me are kind of over. Like I've
Yeah,
reached
it's
the
a
point where
lot.
I've got about as much as I can get
Uh huh.
and absorb, and I'm still gonna have to process that. But I have a question: where do you see, just based on what you've seen in the past, where do you think Bitcoin will be in just like let's say 5 years, not a long amount of time, just 5 years? What do you think the?
I think you have to assume it's going to accelerate,
Mhm.
and so extrapolate the acceleration of the past 10 years, where it went
Yeah.
from $5 a Bitcoin to, or even less, per Bitcoin to
Well, but
50,000.
that's kind of I think the extrapolation has to start. It can't start from the beginning. It's got to like I think now it feels as though it's been around long enough. People are familiar with it. Even if people are scared of it, they know it exists. They know it's a thing. Like now it feels like a good. This is almost a baseline. You know?
Think of it like then, like Netflix or something like that, 20 years ago. Or think of it. Okay, think of it when Netflix came out with their first TV show, House of Cards.
Uh, Was it that or Orange is the New Black? It was one of those two.
I think it was House of Cards,
Okay, yeah,
and
you're right. You're
it's
right.
like,
You're right.
wow, they're gonna make their own shows. Like I thought that would be weird, like Blockbuster making their own shows. Like that's weird. Are they even gonna know how to do it? Whatever. I had all these
Yeah.
stupid noob questions that now prove me like an idiot, because now, and I remember, Netflix shows were first nominated for awards, and they thought, well, should they be nominated for Emmys
Yeah.
or Oscars or whatever? Um, but now the best perhaps the best TV is
Oh yeah.
Netflix.
Or well, they're just on streaming services. It's not, like Apple TV's got some, Amazon, Netflix. It's like it's the no. That's what I kind of was saying about the phone and cars introduced into a world of horses. Bitcoin now is kind of it's a stat. I mean, the idea it's in the zeitgeist. Like we all kind of know
Yes.
it is. So it's
Yes.
now it gets to kind of figure out. Okay, it's here. What's going to happen now that it's found it's bought property on this planet, now it's living, now what? So
I mean, think about how far Netflix has come
mhm.
technologically, culturally. If a show is big on Netflix, it's big. Period.
Okay,
Right? It's almost like
yeah,
everyone has it. It's like an assumption. And when's the last time you watched a series on ABC or NBC?
doesn't
Like
happen, doesn't
it
happen.
doesn't have like that's how far it's come this fast.
Well,
And
okay, you know what, let me okay, so while I've got this thought in my head, okay,
yeah.
Netflix started off by sending you DVDs, right?
Mm-hmm.
You ordered, you get a DVD, they send it to you and you send it back. It was a DVD thing. What enabled Netflix to become what it is now was back to the wireless router conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Technology gave
Mm-hmm.
us the ability to stream something in high def. If we were
Right.
still doing dial-up modems, Netflix couldn't do what it's doing,
True.
right? It needed that
True.
infrastructure to advance, so streaming was a possibility. All this stuff. I mean, and
Yep.
then you bring in the iPhone or phones like the phone. Every technology allowed these things, and they
True.
kind of got in early, and they had to have seen it coming, but they got in
Yep.
way before technology advanced. Bam, here you are. So with Bitcoin, is there a technological advancement that will make it easier to integrate into our daily lives?
Not for the US because we already have high-speed internet practically everywhere. But
But I
not
mean,
everywhere.
what I mean,
Satellite internet.
not to say not the internet. I mean, just is there a technological advancement, like maybe the ability to use it a certain place, or to save it, or to just is there a
No,
technological thing?
it's more a societal evolution.
Okay,
It's
okay,
it's it's more cultural
mindset.
change.
Okay,
Can you think of money outside the dollar?
yeah, okay,
Can you think of money in terms of how much does that cost? Not so now we can't even use Bitcoin as a unit because it's too big. So
hmm
now they take the very smallest unit of a Bitcoin called a Satoshi, and because out of the founder of Bitcoin is an anonymous person with the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto.
hmm
So they've taken the smallest unit of a Bitcoin, which by the way isn't 2 decimal points like a penny,
hmm
penny, dime, dollar. No,
yeah,
Bitcoin goes back 8 decimal
eight.
points. Yeah, so 100 million Satoshis is 1 Bitcoin.
Damn.
So 1 Satoshi is far less valuable than a penny right now.
Okay.
So one day they'll say, oh, how many Satoshis does that cost? That's what has to change, is people's thinking around it.
When it gets out of the 8 decimal and gets maybe into the 2 decimal, where it's actually because
When it's practical, yeah.
practical.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
What was I gonna say? Oh, hold on now. There was more.
Mm.
Oh yeah, the philanthropic part. It's not a gated community because anyone with high-speed internet can get in.
Yep.
But it is still exclusive insofar as you need to. It's good. Like if you're a very ambitious young person and you're just curious about it, even though no one else in your world does it, you can learn about it. You can partake in it.
Okay.
That said, it makes it a lot easier when you know someone to introduce you to it.
Yeah.
And the only reason I found out about Bitcoin years ago was because I met a dude in my gym, and he was watching CNBC, and I thought, who watches money, like financial shows at the gym? You're supposed to watch food, reality TV, cartoons. And so he was on the stair stepper, and I just commented on that. And I met Kyle, and he's, he introduced me. He talked my ear off about it because he loved it. And like that doesn't happen to people who are living in the sticks or are in a, whatever, some kind of marginalized, impoverished area. So I'm going to teach a class. I'm going to give an introductory class on cryptocurrency to this nonprofit in Minneapolis later this month to introduce whoever wants to come, because who doesn't have questions about this? Like 9 out of 10 people, if they're honest, are going to say, okay, what the hell's a Bitcoin? How do I get some? Is this secure? Is it safe? Whatever. And I'll just go there and answer all their questions and, whatever.
That'll be fun. Yeah.
Because it gets bigger than money, Paul. Like money is the one thing that is talked about, and we've only talked about Bitcoin, but it's not just about money. It's about all the applications you can do with blockchain and tokenizing, putting tokens assigned to specific things.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound very clear. Let me just say this. Digital art has erupted in the last year. Because you know how I said you can't fudge who owns which Bitcoin because it's distributed? Well, what if you did that with a piece of an image or a video or a piece of audio?
Well, I know sports they have they do God, I can't think of the name, but like
digital
sports cards. They
digital
have
cards
the moments,
with a little GIF.
Moments and stuff, and I'm sure those are used the blockchain. Probably.
That's what they call an NFT.
NFT.
Yes.
That's it. What does that stand for? What's NFT?
Yeah, I wish they had a better name, but it stands for non-fungible token. Okay. And that probably causes more questions than answers.
Yeah.
But fungible means you can use it for other things. Like I can sell a stock, or I can take dollars and I can use them for unlimited amounts of things, right? But if you have a non-fungible token, that token is pinned to that piece of art or that collectible, and it's non-fungible. So you can sell the non-fungible token for money, which is then fungible, but the token itself is not fungible. It can't be, I guess, messed with.
It's basically like this is a non-fungible item. Like it's a cup.
It's always going to be a cup.
It's not going to turn into $1.
You could melt it.
You could pay $1 for it.
You could maybe break it down and do something with it. But yes, for all intents and purposes, it's not fungible. Same with the non-fungible token. This token represents this one piece of art. And so artists, collectibles, sports leagues, NBA is huge into this right now. Like this is, and people are getting rich doing this too. So this is an opportunity for people to expand, right? Not just for fun and interesting. And there's NFT based games where, like on Fortnite, you can buy a skin or you can buy a weapon or something like that. Well, what if it's where you were the only player in that game, with this one item?
I see. So basically, it's almost this. It's a one of a kind type of thing. Like
It's
you can't,
ownership of a digital good.
Yes. Okay. That you can't do the copy paste. There's no Control C, Control V. It's just it's or Apple.
Now with it's interesting with images that are NFTs, you can right click and just take the image.
Yeah.
But according to the blockchain, you are the owner of that image. So now it's about, what does it mean to own something? So that's an interesting psychological question too. But people are buying into it big time.
Yeah, I hear
It's
a lot
hyped.
about it.
It's probably going to pop. It's a bubble. But at the same time, there's a lot. The internet was a bubble too, and that stuck around pretty good. Here we are talking on it. So
Yeah.
NFTs will be the same way. It'll burst. The things will come down from the craze. But at the end of the day, when the dust settles, it's going to be a future with where they're ubiquitous.
Well, we're in a digital world, so anything digital has a chance to ride a lot further than analog.